Yes, exactly. That's one of the reasons why the mobilization is taking place in parallel with the organization of this illegal and fake referendums. So they are connected, two events that are connected, and Putin would like to deploy new recruits to the occupied territories in order to actually solidify the new status quo that he's trying to create in the occupied parts of Ukraine.
Yeah. Have people in these areas, we've seen them out and voting, do you think they have a feeling that they have a choice in this vote, given it is occupied by Russian soldiers at the moment?
No, there is no way of having a free vote or in general say from the people who are still staying in these occupied regions. We know very well the example of the Crimean annexation, which took place exactly according to the same textbook through the illegal and sham referendum. And then it was also organized with the support of the army. So when there is a soldier that is accompanying the organizer of the referendum, you are going to vote because you don't have other choice. So this is exactly the way or the circumstances under which people who are still in the occupied territories had to participate in this so-called pseudo referendums.
Dionis, what sort of rights do you think Putin might assume once he declares these territories Russian?
Well, according to the national legislation, again, which was adjusted many times by Russia to suit Putin's geopolitical interests, all the territories that are part of Russia should be protected, which means that Russia can apply any kind of weapons, including the nuclear weapons, to protect these territories. So this is exactly the essence of what we are talking now. Why Putin is doing right now organizing right now the referendums, and why this is happening with the mobilization attached to it. It is exactly in order to make these territories as soon as possible part of the Russian military umbrella, to be part of these territories and be protected.
Well, let's look in Russia itself. The Kremlin overnight to acknowledge that mistakes have been made in this mobilization, with disabled people and the elderly being called up.
Yes, this is something that they have to do because usually when the things are not going on according to the plans, then they start to use the blame games, which helps them to diffuse the responsibility from who is exactly guilty for this chaotic organization of the partial mobilization. We know very well, exactly as you mentioned, that sick people, old people are recruited, as well as people from very sensitive regions of Russia, like the North Caucasus, where we had, in the past, we had ethnic-based conflicts. So the situation is very unsettling within Russia, but we know that people don't have other choice than either to protest, which they are doing, some of them are trying to do, to be enlisted, or to flee the country.
Well, even those who've been arrested during the protests, we understand, are being handed their conscription papers. So it's almost been a countermeasure that people have to think carefully about protesting, otherwise they could be on their way to this war.
Exactly. If you protest, it's not a guarantee that you are going to avoid the enrollment. So you can be still sent to Ukraine. What is also bad for these people is that they are not trained. So they are very vulnerable. They are sent as cannon fodder, and they can be easily destroyed by the very highly motivated Ukrainian army. So the risk for these people is to either stay still in place, even if they accept to be enrolled and sent to Ukraine.
How do you think the Kremlin is going to manage what's happening at the borders? People are still fleeing, queuing up for miles to get across the border, ironically into Georgia. Do you think they will move to close these borders eventually?
This is something which has been circulated in the media that after the pseudo referendums are approved, the results of these events are approved by Kremlin, the borders are going to be closed. Of course, this is still a big question whether this will happen, but we know that right now there are still countries that are open to accept the Russian fleeing the recruitment, and these countries are in Central Asia and, as you mentioned, in the South Caucasus. So apart from Georgia, we also have Armenia that is also receiving Russians fleeing the current mobilization.
You know, this is not playing well either domestically or internationally for Putin, but do you think this is something he's just going to dig in on?
We know very well that he is cornered. He doesn't have any other choices. He was shamed during the high-level meetings in Uzbekistan just a few days ago, and he had to show that he has strength at home. Of course, this mobilization doesn't go according to the plan, but he knows very well that he has to do something about the occupied territories in Ukraine, that he should change the status quo. At the same time, he realized that, and this is very obvious, that he is facing a crisis of legitimacy at home. So he's in a very difficult situation. Therefore, we're going to see much more blame gaming between different representatives of Putin's inner circle.
Dionis, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.